What's up, everybody? It's Chad. We're back again. I'm back from my Pacific Northwest trip. Another episode of Ask Chad Grassy Logic this week. I'm here this week with Madi. Thank you so much for joining me.
Yeah, happy to be here.
Thank you, of course. And Madi is from Florvida, her own business and everything, but I want to talk to her. I'll let her introduce herself. So please, by all means, introduce yourself if you could.
Small scale garden, got a couple of rooms. We use salts, but have organic amendments. So try to have the best of both worlds, keep it manageable without going too crazy.
Dope. Yeah, and you guys are based out here in Cruces, so that's dope. To know that you guys are local and a micro. A micro small business, which is good to see too. You guys aren't these massive grows. You have a small grow, but you're putting out some really good product and everything.
Thank you.
Like that.
Appreciate it.
Heck yeah. I appreciate y'all being around. Because we need to show not just the state, but everyone that craft is kind of like, I wouldn't say the way to go, but the way that a lot of consumers want it to be.
Right.
It's not there yet, but eventually it will be. Like the consumer market where they want it to be, it's where it's with craft. It's not with like the huge massive grows. Don't get me wrong, they can do that. They can get to put the mass out if they need it, but it's starting to slowly change where the customers want that quality.
That's great. Yeah. Definitely want to put out the best quality possible. That's the goal at all times. It's just high quality flower. Just get the people what we can do as best as we can do it.
Yeah, definitely. And yeah, it's good to hear. You putting out some interesting cultivars and stuff like that too. Some originals going out there. So that's good to see. Some stuff that you don't see in New Mexico a lot. Like you don't see Florida Man. That's the only place I've seen this from you. So It's cool that that you guys have that and everything. And of course the Cali girl, only place I've seen it too. So, but yeah, without further ado, so there are micro business here in town. Brought her on today. We're gonna have some great conversations, but yeah, let's get into it. So before we get into the current day, how you're operating now, where you're at, where did your cannabis journey start?
After college, I moved out to Oregon, started at a cannabis producer and manufacturer where I started in a packaging department. I grammed out oil. From there, I moved into their grow room, kind of did a little bit of everything, did whatever was needed to be done. Got into like the management side of things and did procurement a little bit. Helped set up a dispensary for them out on the coast. And then moved on and got into just pure cannabis retail up in Portland. Managed a shop up there for a couple of years. Made my way down to California for a little bit. Also worked in cannabis retail. That was like a corporate cannabis job versus like a mom and pop gig. So I got to see both sides of the coin. And from there, I made my way out here with the intention of opening a grow business. So it's been a fun little journey for sure. Just kind of trying out different things, seeing what works, seeing what doesn't work, and figuring out kind of where I want to position myself and what kind of people I want to work with and how we want to move from here.
Yeah, definitely. Because it's trial and error, for most things, some partnerships or people you work with, it works great. And others it doesn't, but you don't know unless you try,
Exactly,
and sometimes don't get me wrong, it's a pain in the ass and, leads in tragedy, but you don't know unless you actually give it that shot.
Yeah.
So that's good to hear that, you have all this experience and you brought it here to New Mexico. Because a lot of people think that we don't have a lot of experience, which don't get me wrong, we didn't on the legalization side.
Right.
So it helped. We had a lot on the medical side. But it was cool to see, more people come in and bring their expertise from other areas, and the fact that you have the mom and pop and the corporate side of things, you get a real understanding of, how things really play out and, and go and stuff like that. So that's really cool. When did you start using cannabis?
I started, I think it was like 15 or 16. The first time I consume cannabis, I was in Amsterdam. My parents might have left like an edible kicking around somewhere.
Yeah.
Got into that. It was a super fun time, but kind of opened the world up. Didn't do it too much until after college. I swam as a Division I athlete.
Also, you're a fish.
Yeah, heart fish. I hear that sometimes. But I got drug tested all the time. So I wasn't able to consume consistently until after college. The college experience was definitely an eye-opener for me because swimming is one of the highest binge drinking sports in the
Really?
NCAA. I think it is the number one, or when I was in college, it was the number one binge drinking sport. Because
Interesting.
you can only go out like one night a week without feeling like trash during practices. So
okay.
I saw all these people going out partying, doing things. I felt like shit afterward. And I'm like, why can I do this? I don't really want to do this. I'm just kind of doing it to be social. And it helped open my eyes. Like, I can use cannabis. I feel better. I can consume the calories I need to consume. I can get the rest and recovery I need. Overall, I feel better in all aspects of my life, but I'm getting drug tested for it. So that was a big part of my journey into cannabis, was seeing the difference there and recognizing kind of the side that I wanted to stay on.
Yeah, definitely. And, it really it sucks because you kind of get stuck in this fork in the road. Do I want to continue on this journey with this plant that I love and I want to support and I want to do all this cool stuff? Or do I want to do athletics or whatever it may be? For me, it was the Army. My clearance got in the way. I had a top secret clearance. And so I couldn't do cannabis advocacy work and the way I wanted to if I continued, working the military route or even contracting, with the clearance. And so I just let it lapse. And I was like, I don't give a shit. I'm not going to try to go into that world anymore. And I have it and I don't want to. And, it was a good decision, because if I would have kept it and then not take the opportunity that I had with cannabis, I probably would have regretted it.
Right.
And who knows where I would have been now. So it's cool. And it's interesting to see where people come from and what choices they made to lead them here, because we all had to make a sacrifice somewhere and a decision, and then I hope you didn't have to make it with swimming or whatever, but to me, it seemed like it was an easy decision.
Yeah, no, I liked it.
Yeah.
I kind of knew that was the direction. Swimming doesn't have a lot of professional opportunities. There are some professional swimmers, but it's really hard to make an income in swimming. So I kind of knew after college that would be the end of that career, and was really interested in getting into cannabis after that. Yeah. So took the leap, went out to Oregon. It was the best thing I've ever done. I love it out there. And I love every opportunity that came with it. Yeah,
definitely. Where are you from originally?
I'm from Florida.
Florida. Okay, so that makes sense.
Yep, there's the Florida man.
That makes sense where the Florida man came from. Is that a cultivar from Florida or?
No, it's a banana cream cake jealousy crossed with Cushman's, and it didn't have a name on it. So just kind of picked a name that I felt was good and good for the high and ran with it.
Oh, it's a good name. I love it. Yeah,
it.
Florida man's hilarious. I gotta dig it. Because here in New Mexico, you feel like there's a version of a Florida man everywhere, but Florida man throws alligators through a freaking window.
Yeah.
There's a little bit of a difference there. So it's cool. It's a cool name and everything that you got creative in the sense and, paid homage to where you're from as well at the same time. That's dope. So what really made you pick New Mexico out of all places to, start this journey yourself?
Couple of things. The licensing and regulations are very similar to Oregon.
Okay.
And because I'd done some licensing stuff in Oregon, I was pretty comfortable with what I was looking at with New Mexico. The ease of access to the market, like the affordability, was a huge factor. And then my parents had purchased a home in Mesilla.
Oh, okay.
A couple of years before legalization went through in New Mexico. And they definitely encouraged me to consider New Mexico as an option. It's a newer market, affordability. And then having family close by was a pretty big thing, especially after COVID, because I was out in the Pacific Northwest by myself.
Yeah, that's rough.
So it was nice to come down here, reconnect with the family, and have a support system in place. Yeah,
for sure. Because I was stationed in Hawaii. I was in the middle of the Pacific alone.
Yeah.
And I totally get it. Not having that, any kind of support system like that is rough, especially if you're trying to do something to start out. So that's cool. And, it's interesting that you picked, Las Cruces, because most people were looking at Albuquerque,
right.
And the really, really clever ones were looking at Southern Park.
Right.
But you decided Las Cruces, and I get it, you have all the support here. And to be honest, it may have been a better move because it's not as crazy, as the other places I mentioned, don't get me wrong. Cruces is a decent little market, but we're nothing like Southern Park.
Yeah.
We're nothing like Albuquerque. Those places are cutthroat.
100%.
Like craziness. Like, don't get me wrong, you probably have some product in Southern Park too, I'm sure.
Yeah.
And we'll get to that in a minute, where your product's at, because I want to for sure dig into that and everything. But Yeah, I was curious, like what made you pick Cruces, but that makes sense.
Yeah.
Like
the
why?
family ties.
Yeah, for sure. And I'm glad because, we get some good product in that area because we're cut off by that stupid border check.
Yeah, that was the unexpected twist after the fact. I don't know if I would have picked Cruces had I known that the border check would be an issue after the fact, but it hasn't been inhibitive so far. It's definitely nerve-wracking to go through there, but I'm still happy with my choice. I'm glad I'm here and have the group of people that I have.
Yeah, definitely dope. And, luckily we have Sunland Park that kind of helps us. That kind of, it's like our little Albuquerque that's close enough, when it comes to sales. So like, that's what I tell people, like, well, how do you guys get your product up north? I'm like, we don't, we just keep it down here.
Yeah. If you have a big enough market demand, you don't need to go out.
Yeah. It's just unfortunate because when I go up north, I see brands I've never seen before and vice versa.
Yeah.
They've never seen brands down here, but it's kind of cool at the same time because Albuquerque is a different world in a sense in its own anyway.
Yeah.
And so when you go there, it's like, oh, wow, total different. And like people are like, you don't know that product? I'm like, no. I don't. Oh, what's up, Justin? Thank you for joining us over here in the chat. He said, hey. So he used to run a smoke shop here in town.
Oh, right on. Cool.
Yeah, cool guy. Does glass, blows glass.
Oh, nice.
But yeah, so but get back to the conversation at hand and everything. That's cool that you picked Cruces and everything. And I kind of figured that was the reason why you picked New Mexico in general, because that's what a lot of people said when it happened. And I thought, a few months ago, I thought about this. I said, you know what? What would have happened if these people in their respective states, regardless of where it was, were able to get the same opportunities that we gave here in New Mexico? Because so many people are like, oh, these out-of-state people, which I didn't really mind. It, created a vast different kind of products and stuff and techniques and brought different things in. That's like my military town mindset that really, kicks in with that. But what would have happened if these people had that same opportunity? Because I heard people from, I was from Washington, I was from Oregon, I was from, California, Colorado, and I came here because of the opportunity what it provided. I'm like, dang, what could have you guys have done if you were able to like stay in your respective state and kick ass there versus, being so restrictive and kind of cut off to the rich people, because New Mexico, we're poor. So we realized that and we said, all right, we can't really make these licenses like they were during the medical days because they were like 180K, 200K just for the license fee. So they said, okay, we can't do that, with this, so we have to go a different route. So it's interesting, and I kind of thought about that. I was like, wonder what happened. Maybe one day we'll get there. I don't know, but for the time being, I think we kind of lucked out with a lot of cool brands and a lot of cool stuff that's come here to New Mexico from other states. And you guys have really embraced the New Mexico-ness of things too. Well, and I was going to ask you, and speaking of, where did the name come from, Florvida?
There was no real big background. I just kind of spitballed a handful of ideas. And this one resonated with me the most or felt right. I know it's not right. Like it doesn't translate perfectly, but I think I probably thought of like Pura Vida, the jewelry lifestyle brand.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
Thought like, oh, how can I play with that? But it just felt right. Liked it. Thought it was a good fit. Kind of sounds a little bit like it makes sense locally. And then relates to like my background a little bit with where I'm from.
Yeah. Florida's a high Spanish speaking population as well too. Yeah.
But yeah, nothing crazy with it. Really the main thing for me is like getting proof of concept with the idea and having a viable business plan first. And the name was really the smallest factor in all of it. I figure, you have, and the name's just there. It's not really the important part for me. Yeah.
And most people don't really care that I've talked to you. They're not like, I don't like it because it's not right. I mean, there's so much Spanglish in New Mexico, and come to the you have green fuego, for an example. They use Spanglish, which is great. That really shows the New Mexicanness of the brand. You have the English and the Spanish mixed together within the brand name. And then, sometimes we have different Spanishes from other places too. So I don't think anybody really thinks too much of it. And when it comes to brands, ours is spelt with a Z. Our reservoir is spelled with a Z, and the dogs with the Z. So yeah, it's fun to get creative with it and to kind of play with it. And the fact that yours has a background from another brand and you kind of mesh them together makes it even cooler. Cool. In my opinion anyway.
Appreciate it.
And I really love the branding. It's simple but effective at the same time, and you don't have to get super crazy with it. But that's kind of the approach we took with our boxes.
Right.
The white boxes with, the stuff on it and everything else. Let's go simple, but make it look nice.
Yeah.
It doesn't have to be just the name on it. You can still make it look cool.
Yeah.
And I like the fact that you guys took that same approach too.
Yeah.
And to be honest, when I was thinking of ours, I was kind of like, you know what, they do that too, so why not? Because I was already thinking about it, and I was like, who else does? I was like, oh yeah, they do it too. And I thought of a couple others. I was like, yeah, that works.
Go for it.
Yeah. And
full
so
send.
it's simplistic and it works, and it's pretty at the same time too.
Yeah.
I like the little reef thing you got going on there.
Thank
Is it
you,
just like a
thank you.
design you picked, or?
Yeah, I noticed that there weren't a lot of brands using like Talavera patterns or designs locally, and I really like the pottery, the Talavera pottery. Just being in Mesilla with my family a lot, you see the little touristy stores all over the place, and I think it's beautiful, and I didn't see anyone kind of using it in any way in their branding, and I thought that was a disservice to the community because it's so pretty. So kind of used that as the base and went from there, and hope to have some more designs with that style of art.
Yeah, I like that. It's a great idea to way to pay homage more as to the area and the art, because I don't think a lot of people really look at it in that sense. When I see it now, when I look at it, I'm like, oh, you're right, because it looked familiar. I was like, this looks so familiar, and I couldn't really pinpoint it, and it wasn't like front in my mind, so I didn't really like care to ask until now. When we really got into it, and now that I look at it, I'm like, that makes total fucking sense. Like, even if you put it on a jar and made it look like one of those clay pots, that would be cool. Like kind of shit like that.
I would love to do something like that. Yeah.
Well, let us know. We can get it done for you.
Appreciate it.
No worries. So, but we'll get on to your business and everything. Back to that. But yeah, I wanted to talk about the logos and everything. I always want to get down to the background of people's business names and their logos and stuff, because there's a lot of thought that goes into it, as much as we don't think there is. A lot of meaning can be into that sometimes, and that really breaks down the brand more.
Right.
And sometimes people respect that even more. It's like, oh, what? Oh, that's what that means? I like it even more.
That's cool.
Yeah, exactly. And like the New Mexican flag. There's a lot of representation in that, and that's why a lot of people like it. Don't get me wrong, it's simple. But there's a lot of representation on something, just two colors and one symbol, and that's it. So much representation. I think you've done that a lot with your brand too. So yeah, good job. Congrats.
Appreciate it.
Yeah, heck yeah. Now let's talk about the product. Now, where is your product located at right now? What stores can people find it at?
I think we might be sold out right now.
No shit. Good.
Yeah,
I mean, it's good. That's a good problem to have.
Yeah. But we consistently work with Casa Verde here in town, Queen Bee's also here in town, and then High Life down in Santa Teresa, and Token Tony's up in Clovis.
So places known for quality is kind of what I'm hearing.
That's the goal, is just working with people who appreciate quality and look to carry quality. That's kind of what I hope to align with my brand.
Definitely. I can't disagree with that at all. Like that's really where you want to focus. You can be in the big shops and everything, but being in the places that really focus on that sometimes is more of a highlight, because it's not easy to get in places that want really, really good cannabis. It's not like, hey, I got this stuff. It's like, well, that sucks. Get out of here.
Right.
You have to have something really, really good to get in there. The big guys, they just want the price point.
Exactly,
they want the right price point. And they're not too worried about the quality. But to get in the places known for quality, it's like a little trophy yourself to have. Anyway,
it's a blessing for sure. I'm really appreciative of those relationships and all of the opportunities they're giving us.
Definitely. Well, maybe you can get some more products on the shelves and everything in the future outside of just the flower.
Yeah.
And speaking of, what are your plans, for product and everything in the future?
We're working with you guys on rosin, so that would be the next step, is to have
Didn't want to spoil the surprise.
Happy with the test run that we did. So now that we have the second grow room up and running, trying to have like at least one drop a year, I think, of some hash rosin would be great.
Yeah, definitely. And then a lot of people are starting to discover hash rosin up north, I've noticed.
Okay.
Down south, we've kind of been on it for a few years.
Cool.
But up north, they're finally on it. And with the rescheduling stuff, maybe we can get the medical side of the cannabis up north a little bit easier. So we'll see if that happens.
Fingers crossed. That would be great.
Yeah, definitely. And so, we are going to work with them on some projects and stuff. We did a little test run for them, but I didn't want to spoil it. I was going to leave it to you to announce that, but eventually we're going to be doing some rosin stuff with them, and maybe some collabs, and who knows, maybe you'll do some other rosin collabs around the state too as well too, not with just us. So it'd be cool to see that and what other people can do with your own product, and kind of the differences and stuff. So that's cool, and I'm excited to see what other cultivars you're putting out and what other different runs you do and stuff. And it only gets better through time.
100%.
Yeah, definitely. And that's cool. So what are your plans for the business? Like are you planning to stay mom and pop, or mom and mom, or are you planning to do something bigger?
Keeping it small. That's the goal. This is my fun work since I have a full-time job. So not really trying to exceed the scale that I can manage while doing a full-time job. Because again, quality comes first always. So as long as I can manage the quality, I'll slowly scale the business and increase the grow size, but keeping that controlled based on like the output quality.
Definitely. That's a great way to put it, and a great way to go, to be honest, because we've seen time and time again, people just sprint a mile, and then they get 400 meters and they're just dead. You know what I mean? And they don't realize it's a marathon. It's something that you have to take your time with, build up, and then you can go run it. And you can go sprinting at the end. And then just hitting ball. But yeah, I agree. Starting slow and being able to do what you can manage. It's important because you do have a full-time job, and that's one conversation I actually wanted to have. How do you balance the two? And this is a tip for people out there that are maybe thinking of doing it, like, oh, well, I have a full-time job, and there's many people in the industry that are like this, including us. The Reservoir Dogs, how do you do it? What is your way you get around it to make time?
Automation.
Okay, heck yeah.
The grow room's automated. I use salts and drippers. And then most everything is controlled from my phone. So I don't have to be there to get most of the work done. I just need to make sure I'm timing things right with filling the reservoirs and then being around to do key work, de-leafing, training, trellis, all of that stuff. So just time management and then spending a little bit of money to do the automation side.
Yeah. So even though you're automated, you're still touching every plant. And that's the important part I want to tell people is, you can go fully automated, but you still need to touch that plant. There's not a robot that goes in there and that defoliates for you yet anyway, that does that for you. There's not a robot that goes in and can trim it like it looks like it's hand trimmed. We have the machines that trims, but it's never going to look like that hand trim. They always got to go in and do little touches and
100%,
stuff. So, it's great that you mentioned that, but at the same time, you still have that component of, I still have to go and physically do stuff with the plants and, do stuff to keep it going. So automation is great. And I love it too. I use it in my own grow room. I have an automatic feeder and all that good stuff. Cause I'm busy. So, I have to go around. Sometimes I'm gone for days at a time, whatever. And it's nice to have something that, is getting watered while you're gone. And, while you're busy, and having it on your phone to check on it to, make you feel even better is even better. So that's a great tip. So for those of you out there that are watching, that's one good way to do it. A lot of these days, there is a lot of systems that will automatically water your stuff for you and do all kinds of other stuff automatically. And, why stay in 1992 when we can be in 2026 these days? So yeah, that's great. What's some other things that you do? Like, how do you balance, your life kind of cycle? No, not cycle, your life cycle. What are you, battery? How do you balance your like normal life and your work life with this?
I don't have a lot of free time for fun stuff. I really enjoy being in the garden. I like spending time in there. That's my way to decompress. So I spend a lot of time in the grow doing grow work. I don't do a ton outside of that. I'll go hiking here and there and hang out with the family sometimes. But I definitely am putting in a lot of hours in the workplace right now. Hopefully, get to a point where I can scale, have some employees that can take over. But at this point, I prefer to keep my hands on all the processes just to make sure the quality is never sacrificed. So it's a labor of love. It's something I'm happy to do. I love being in there. And it makes my life better. So it's my fun stuff.
Yeah, definitely.
Really.
Okay, so it's already your extracurricular activity that you really like doing. Myself too. I do the same thing. I have my outside garden going and everything.
Yeah.
I got my indoor stuff. I start my garden plants indoor with right next to the weed.
Right.
You know, it just makes sense, right? And then I go from there. So yeah, I spend a lot of time with the same thing. And so it's going to come down to a lot of you guys' passion. Are you passionate about the plant and what you got going on? You know, like that's really how you figure it out in the end. And so these tips will help. But it's the ganas that you're really going to need at the end of the day.
Yeah, passion's definitely the driving force. There's going to be a lot of days where some shit hits the fan and you have to remember why you're in there. And, you know, shit is going to hit the fan. So you just can't give up when it gets kind of tough.
Yeah, it's not a matter of if, it's when.
Yeah.
That's always the question I tell people. It's like, it's not if this is going to fail. It's when is it going to fail?
Yeah. My parents had their own business as I grew up, and like that was the biggest piece of advice that they gave me was like, oh no, everything's going to go wrong and it's going to go wrong at the worst time possible. So you should always have a plan in place for how to deal with these things and just be prepared for that. And it's put me in the right mindset to deal with things as they come. Because it goes across all industries, 100%.
I agree. And that's really great advice for your parents. I thank them for that advice because I like that as well. You know, that for those of you out there watching and who are thinking about, you know, getting into the industry, you know, doing your own business, that is some great advice to really think about, you know. And sometimes people figure out that, you know, this isn't for me, and that's okay. It's okay to figure out this isn't for you. You know, like there's so many people that have gone into this industry like, oh man, I failed, I didn't make it. I'm like, well, either you try again or you do something else.
Yeah, absolutely.
You know, that's the beauty of our market here.
Sometimes it's better to keep it passion, project, scale, rather than increasing the size too much and losing that love of the plant. Because I couldn't imagine not loving what I do or feeling burnt out from growing cannabis. And if I ever get to that point, I will pull back into the range where I feel like I can manage it. Yeah,
I've done that before, and you know, I know exactly what you mean, having to pull back.
Yeah.
You know, like it's like, all right, let me get back something else because this is too much, you know, too much for me. So I agree with you. So, but thank you so much for, you know, for sharing all this stuff with me on, you know, your journey, you know, even the tips on, you know, how you balance your work life kind of situation and everything like that. You know, it's an evolving thing. So of course, you know, what you do now may not be what you do, you know, a year or 2 months from now. But, you know, I appreciate that because, you know, it could help somebody. And to be honest, you know, what your parents, the advice they gave you may help a bunch of people today. So I appreciate that. So before we move on to the next topic at hand, is there anything you want to talk about or share before we move on?
No, I don't think so.
Okay, cool. Yeah. Well, where can people find you social media wise?
Florvida Gardens on Instagram, mainly just on Instagram.
Okay.
Right now.
Cool. Yeah. I mean, that's a good place to be honest. I haven't been a big fan of Facebook for a long time. You don't have to post there for what I do.
I feel like the cannabis gets a little more flagged on Facebook.
Yeah.
At least from my experience, it seems like it gets flagged a bit faster than just Instagram. But I also feel a little lucky because I haven't had too many issues with getting flagged.
Yeah. Instagram hasn't been as bad lately since I went private, but on my Facebook, my banner got flagged a few years ago, so I got frustrated. I made one that said, "This is definitely not a pot leaf." That's all it says on there.
That's great.
So yeah, I was like, and F you to Facebook, I guess. But yeah, we'll move on to the next conversation at hand. We're going to be talking about some break-ins that have been happening in the area. And it's unfortunate that it happens, but it does happen. And it's been happening in New Mexico for a very long time. Even during the medical days, we had issues with people breaking into dispensaries. We had one guy, he used a pickaxe and he Fortnited his way through the ceiling of Organica back in the day. He stole a bunch of shit and got out. I don't know if he rappelled back in or if the ceiling was just, you know, that low. I remember being in the store and it's a pretty high ceiling. So he must have had some exit way out. Maybe he opened the front door somehow and got his way out. But yeah, so, and that was happening on and off throughout the years in the medical days, you know, like you'd hear about it. And in Albuquerque, I don't live in Albuquerque, never lived up there. And I'm sure it happened significantly more than I heard about.
Yeah.
Because even in instances like, you know, with this, you know, I'm finding people telling me, oh yeah, I got, you know, robbed this many times and this, but I didn't say anything. I'm like, well, the community wants to help. You need to say something, you know, especially if it's happening a lot, you know, like 100%. We don't want that to happen either, because like that means we may lose you as a source to get our cannabis. You know, we'll lose access. We don't want that to happen. So yeah, like it's unfortunate that it's happening, but like I said, it's always happened here in New Mexico since the medical days. And to be honest, a lot of businesses get robbed. You know, they get broken into. It's not just cannabis. When I was stationed in Hawaii, the first week I was there, we were right next to what's called Wahiva. It's a little town right outside of base. And usually the Army sets up bases right in the ghetto. And this is the hood.
Okay.
We walked in and we're going to Taco Bell that just was right there. We watched this big dude kicking a liquor store door that was chained up and everything. Big Samoan guy, probably like 6'8".
Yeah.
Just kicks it in like nothing, just grabs a bunch and just dips out. Like, it happens all over the place. And sometimes you try to do your best to make it secure. And it just, if someone's going to want to get in, they're going to do their damnedest to get in. That dude just used his brute force just to break a door open. And, you know, they had bars on the window. They had it chained up, you know, like it was an unfortunate situation.
So what can you do at that point?
Yeah. Us at that situation, we were just like,
I don't want to piss him off.
yeah, I was like, I didn't see anything. Did you guys see anything? Nope. All right, let's go get tacos. I was like, I didn't see shit. But yeah, so it happens all the time. And unfortunately, here in Cruces, last week and the week before, it was a bad week.
Yeah.
It was a string of break-ins, but we got an update on it. It come to find out it was a group of kids that's been doing it. Teenagers. Well, one wasn't even a teenager yet. He was 12 years old. He's been since caught and is cooperating with the police. And then they caught another one. So 2 have been caught so far that were a part of it. And they were breaking into places around the area. Cruces, Sunland Park. I think Anthony, they hit a couple places in Anthony, Santa Teresa area. They were on their way to just go around the whole area and just pick off, you know, as many people as they could. And it didn't matter who you were. If they could get in, they were getting in.
Yeah.
Low tech methods. They saw glass, they saw big rock, they took glass, they took rock, smashed glass. That's literally all they did. And there was a couple instances where it didn't work so well and they ended up leaving because either they couldn't break the glass or the security, whatever, was too good. But unfortunately, the places that did get hit, they were mostly like glass doors, glass windows, and they had multiple throughout the store. And so they were kind of able to get in. And one of the videos I saw from one of the places that posted it, they had a glass display and the kids just pushed it over. Like, it was just like no regard for anything. I was just like, this is crazy, because they'd posted online, one of the businesses, and I was like, this is nuts. Because I shared it too, and people were like, that kid was 12? And I was like, yeah, that's the shocking part.
Yeah, it's astounding. Yeah,
it is. And we can sit here all day and preach about parenting, police work, and all that. That's not really what I'm here to do. I'm just trying to get you guys informed about what's been going on. And if you know something, see something, hear something, please speak up. If you know the business that, you know, has been getting broken into or anything, let them know. Or if you want to contact the police, let them know too. So that way they can get the information. They're already investigating all this. I'm sure they'll forward it to somebody that is. So if you have a kid who sees an Instagram account and they're selling a cannabis that's from a dispensary and it's illegal, get that account name, take some screenshots, you know, send it to the police. You don't want your kid to be buying that in the first place. It's not legal. They're not supposed to have it. And it was taken illegally. So, you know, it shouldn't have it in the first place. For right now, really, you guys maybe start looking at some better security measures. Metal like bars on windows, metal doors. I think someone even mentioned wooden doors, you know, might be a better route. You know, they do withstand rocks a little bit better than glass.
Yeah, I think the just blocking view to the sales floor with this situation may be beneficial.
Yeah, 100%.
Just they're looking for something easy and quick, and other criminals might do the same thing. So just blocking view could be the smallest thing that keeps a criminal deterred from coming and doing that to you. Yeah.
If anybody finds, you know, vulnerabilities in anybody's security, they're going to take advantage of it. And if someone else finds out, they're all going to take advantage of it. Just that's how hackers usually work. You know, they find a vulnerability, share it, and then they all use the same vulnerability and go after that. It's no different for this, in any business, really. You know, so it's going to be who of you all to, you know, look into that. Maybe bulletproof glass. I don't know. I know that's really expensive, but maybe it's going to be worth it, you know, so people don't lose as much in product, you know, because a lot of product was stolen, and, you know, there's nothing we could really do other than try to go after the people to get it back somehow. But I don't know how the state goes about that. I've never even thought about that. Like, what do you do when you get it back from it being stolen? Like, does the state?
You got to waste it.
Yeah, you got to like.
It's uncontrolled and off camera. I would imagine you have to waste it all.
Yeah. So you couldn't even make that money back, you know, after that. So that's an unfortunate part. So
worth spending the money up front.
Yeah, exactly.
Deterrence.
Yeah. So it's better to have the security measures in place versus trying to get everything back in the end. So my heart goes out to all the businesses that were affected. I want nothing but, these people to be held accountable for, and their kids. So hopefully they learn a valuable lesson, and I hope that this is something they can grow from and they don't continue this kind of pattern, because this kind of pattern is just going to lead to, worse things for them later on down the road. And we don't want to see that in our community. It's already bad enough as is. Hopefully if, these kids have a loving family, that family knows about it and they take the proper, steps to fix it. But, there's going to be, someone's going to have to pay for damage at the end of the day. So, we'll see what happens with that. I just wanted to keep you guys informed, on all of this. That's really all the information I have right now. Once more information gets posted, I'll put it on my social media and stuff. I knew about some of this last week, but I was going to wait until some investigation started and, all that stuff, because I don't want, to post like a profile where they're selling this stuff and then they close the profile down and they have a hard time finding it in the investigation. So it's better for them to just get the information, let them deal with it and do the investigation. And then after we figure everything out, we'll release all the stuff and, you guys get all the cool information. But for now, this is really all I have for you guys. And I don't even have any pictures or anything. Like if you guys want to look for some of the videos that some of the businesses posted, I think PvP was one of the ones that posted it, because they made that public and everything. They have a security footage of the kids breaking in and stuff like that. You can even hear their voices on that one, and you can tell they're kids. Yeah, you can hear their non-broken voices yet. And so I was like, this is crazy. So hopefully they do get caught and found and everything, and hopefully the justice system does its job. That's really all I can hope for. And I just wanted to bring this up. So if any of you all have any information, know anything, or see anything, say something. If it's not to the police, bring it up to the people that, have been broken into, if you know who they are, or if, you can take it to someone else. Police, do it. And don't worry, you're not being a rat. You're literally protecting the community, because we don't need kids being thieves. Like, we don't need anybody being thieves. We just especially don't need the youth to be, doing stuff like that. So
100%.
This is a preventive measure to stop them from, going into a life that, they don't really need to be in. And who knows, if they do grow from this and eventually they get older, maybe they can help some other kids by saying, don't be a fuck up like me when I did this when I was younger. And, they can bring up the video and everything and look how dumb I was. Right. Because I've seen people do that. They change their lives and like, I'm going to show you a video of my lowest hour, and like balls to them, like some huge balls for them for showing that. But, that saves some kids, in those instances. So sometimes we think the little things don't matter, but sometimes they mean a lot. So again, this is all I have right now. I'll keep you guys updated in the future on it. We're going to move on to the next conversation. So yeah, do you have anything on that before we move on?
Just the communication could be the difference between like a mom and pop shop staying open or shutting down. Yeah. If someone's small and doesn't have that cash flow to manage break-in like that, like just any type of information going out to the police could make the difference and save someone's business. So I think that's really important to note. Thank you. I really appreciate that. That is a good point. Speak up. If you're one of the businesses that, have gone through this, speak up. There's nothing wrong with that. Like we're not trying to make fun of you. We're trying to help you, and the community is fully behind this, helping you guys out. Because the moment I posted, like, yeah, this and that, oh my God, I can't believe it, and everyone was all about trying to figure out, this situation. So, speak up, closed mouths don't get fed, and, closed mouths on crimes don't get solved. 100%. So, some of the last thing I'm going to talk about, and this one's actually really important. I'm sure you can chime in a lot on this one too. Cleaning up our language at the dispensary. So as you guys know, we're about a couple weeks in since the government has announced cannabis or medical marijuana moving from Schedule 1 to Schedule 3, meaning FDA approved, all that good stuff. We already went through this, in prior episodes. I don't have to take a whole another one to explain it to you guys. The reason why I'm bringing this up is because now that medical marijuana is federally seen as legal and legit, there's certain things that you guys cannot say now, and you probably shouldn't have been saying in the first place, but you definitely shouldn't be saying now. And I'll go through this here in a minute, but because there's quite a few. But what I'm talking about is we can't make certain medical claims. None of us are doctors. I'm not a doctor. I don't know about you, or you could. I don't know. You could surprise me, like, actually, I'm an RN. Like, holy shit. But I'm not a medical. That's the voice of God. You're not a doctor. Gino's looking at me. How dare you? So, I'm not a doctor. I'm not a nurse or medical professional. No. We made it clear that you're not either. So we can't be telling people or helping them with certain elements, like, say a cancer patient comes in
and you know, say, hey, I need something for my cancer. You can't say, hey, take this RSO, it's going to clear it up in a couple of weeks if you do this and this and this and this. You can't do that. What you can say is, hey, this RSO, from a lot of patients, from what they're finding and saying, you can use, you should use it because they're having positive results from it. There are some studies, blah, 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 but you know, you can't really make a medical claim. And I'll go through some for you and exactly what it says so that you guys get a better grasp of what I mean. But before we move on, there are some things that you know just off firsthand.
Yeah, as a dispensary manager, me and my team, we take care to communicate that with our budtenders. Just making sure you're covering your ass, using phrases that are like, I'm not a doctor.
Yeah.
Making sure they're not telling people to expect certain effects. We've been doing that. It's definitely an important one, just to make sure there's no liability issues with certain language saying that you're going to expect certain effects.
Yeah. That's a good.
Being transparent. You know, help is always good. Trying to help people who are in need and need some medicinal relief is always good. But just being transparent about like your sources and the information, like you should never be communicating that it's going to do a certain thing or expecting a certain result. So that's something that like we've been hitting pretty hard already. But now that the legalization status has changed, it's far more serious to avoid like legal repercussions, right?
Yeah. Because you know, now before, you know, the federal government, it was Schedule 1, so it was really just like illegal. So now we have the FDA involved. We even have the FTC involved on this. So the Federal Trade Commission, you know, the same people we got to deal with at the radio, they can crack down on you guys for false claims like medical stuff. So if you make an advertisement, false advertisement, that it does this and this and this, they'll come down on you too for that now. So you have to remember, you have a bunch of alphabet boys that we have to deal with now being in the federal realm. And I've told you guys about this before.
That's FCC.
FCC, excuse me.
Federal Communication.
Federal Trade. Okay. Sorry, all the freaking alphabets always confuse me. But thank you for the clarification.
Rules too.
Yeah. FCC is just as bad. But the FTC, Federal Trade, they will come down on you if you make, you know, false claims and accusations, blah, 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 all that stuff, especially when it comes to the medicine. So I will read you what this says about Schedule 3 that I took from online and everything. You can't claim products cures, prevents, or even treats a specific disease under Schedule 3 unless that specific product, not just cannabis in general, has been FDA approved for that purpose. That means it doesn't just mean a joint that you get from the facility has to be FDA approved. It means that actual specific joint has to be FDA approved. And to be honest, they're not going to approve anything smokable at all. Like they haven't in the past, they're not going to in the future. So it's more than likely going to be an oil form, a pill form that they're going to have an FDA approval for. It's not going to be something that, you know, we can light up, guys. We wish, right? But it's not the way the medical world really works.
Right.
And every doctor and nurse, they will tell you not to smoke physically cannabis. They will tell you to use other forms of it, by all means. So yeah. Here's some other examples too. This would be illegal here. This strain cures insomnia, or this RSO would treat your Crohn's disease. Don't say that anymore. Like I hear so many people say that and do that. Don't. And here's an example of what you can say. Patients have reported this strain, cultivar, helps them feel more relaxed before bed, or this product is often used by those seeking relief for inflammation. Those are a little more safer routes to go. Before legalization happened, I actually worked at a CBD shop. I know that's funny, right? I worked at American CBD Shaman. However, they covered all of this stuff extensively. I had to take a test and everything. So this is where a lot of like the information came from, because I had to do this myself and I had to be very careful on how I was selling the CBD and telling people what it does. They'll be like, oh, will this kill my pain? I'm like, well, it has anti-inflammatory properties, so it might. You know, like there's a possibility it could help. And some people have said that the anti-inflammatory properties of it does help. So maybe, you know, I couldn't give them a definitive like, yeah, definitely going to help your knee pain. So we had to be careful. I mean, what are some examples that you can think of on the top of your head too?
Pretty similar.
Yeah.
Just like people looking for specific effects and maybe looking for it with connection to, oh, I've got cancer. I'm looking for something to do X, Y, Z. And then making sure the team's just using the correct language with that of like, don't tell them that this is going to do exactly what they're asking for it. You aren't a medical provider. You can't say that.
Yeah.
So really just, correct language with it. Lots of things like that. And yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I get it. It's hard to think on the top of the head sometimes, but I have a really good one here. You also can't compare it to other Schedule 3 substances or other, scheduled substances like Advil, Tylenol. If a customer comes up and they say, hey, I have a headache. Oh, try this. It's better than Tylenol. You're fucked. Okay. You just broke the law there. And if you get caught or something happens, you could be held liable for it. If something happens or if that patient has some adverse effects, they contacts whoever, and then it gets back to you, and then it gets to the FDA, and then even the FTC now involved with it too. On top of that, they'll all come down and take a big old dookie on everyone. So we don't want that. What's going on?
No, I was just going to say that, everybody's body acts differently to all the other stuff. So even if it did help out with that, you can't say that it'll help out that person. So yeah, it's more along the lines, well, in this situation, this particular strain has been known to help out some people.
Yeah.
Try it out. If it works for you, great. If not, we might have to experiment.
Yeah.
At least that's what my doctor keeps telling me every time.
Yeah. Less liability.
If this doesn't work, we'll try something else.
Yeah, it's like, we'll go another route. And they do that, and
they're guessing.
And as always, you should be talking to your medical providers about your cannabis use anyway. If you're having issues, if you're whatever, you should be talking to them about it. Your bud tender only knows so much, and they're not medically qualified as a doctor. They're there to sell you a product, and some of them by all means are very, very educated and know their shit. But none of them are certified doctors, RNs and stuff. And if there was one, that would be cool shit. And even now, with the rescheduling, a lot of the cannabis is going to be distributed by pharmacists. A lot of the cannabis is going to be pharmacy grade at a pharmacy. The stuff that won't be is going to be most of the state, level kind of stuff is kind of what I'm getting the gist from the federal government. So we're going to have it's going to be weird. It's Schedule 3 is going to have two different industries within it. Okay. So it's an industry within an industry. You're going to have the state legal side and then the FDA approved side, which is just stuff that they approved only. And it's the most oddest shit that I've ever heard because I've never seen our government do this before. And come June on the 29th, I believe they're going to have that hearing. They may expand it to all cannabis, which would create even more confusion and make it even more limited unless they do the state model. But at the same time, that still leaves recreational cannabis in limbo, and it still doesn't do anything. It's still separated, and it doesn't help as much, because they've been saying this whole time there's going to be Schedule 1 activity. And I don't see in a world of them adding the whole plant in their really Schedule 1 for adult sales really changing. I could be wrong, but I was right when I said that they were going to separate it by definition. So the government's pretty predictable. They sometimes tell you what they're going to do and they show you their hand. But when it comes to this stuff right here, it's pretty cut and dry. You want to stay away from, our flower is medical grade kind of conversations too. That will get you in trouble. You can say this is medical cannabis because that is what it's called in New Mexico. But you can't say it's like a medical grade that doesn't really exist yet. They haven't even figured out what medical grade cannabis is. So for us to even have that category, they'd have to figure it out in the first place, because we're going to have to look towards the federal government a lot for a lot of stuff that we're doing now when it comes to Schedule 3 stuff. So it's not going to be just state, it's going to be federal on top of it, guys. So yeah, it's going to be a bit of a change. It's going to be wonky. I think they're probably going to give us a grace period, I'm sure. They're not going to come out, the gates, gunning, they're not going to go right after you for this, but it's good to know now and to start the change now versus, 2 years from now when that time lapses and not everybody knew that. And then people are getting kicked out or, they're getting arrested or whatever because they told somebody this works better than Tylenol. Right. We don't need that happening, that doesn't need to happen. We already get a lot of people arrested for stupid things in the cannabis industry. So the least amount of arrests we can have, the better. Yeah. So what are some issues that you can see happening, just from your side working at management in a retail? What are some things you can see a bud tender slipping on that you hope there could be a grace period on for?
Communicating the effects for sure.
Yeah.
Hopefully, if nothing else, there's some sort of warning letter sent out. So. Just trademark infringement or copyright infringements, just getting a heads up. about what's okay, or like if there is an overstep in language. Hopefully it's, you know, some sort of warning there. I'm curious to see if the impact is heavier with like what's being communicated by budtenders or what's being used as like marketing by the business itself.
Yeah.
Because it seems the marketing would be the bigger one for kind of visibility rather than just like hearsay from what budtenders are saying, unless there's some sort of case built.
Yeah.
So I think mainly just really covering their language with how they're communicating about effects. But really curious, kind of coming in here, open to seeing what happens.
Yeah. Yeah, definitely. Me too. You know, there's a lot of unknown stuff. And as I said many times, the government is still figuring this out too. You know, so when they figure it out, we figure it out. But for right now, this part has been figured out. You know, the CBD industry already went through this, or the hemp industry. So I'm taking a lot of this from that because they had to do the exact same thing. They had to make sure they weren't making all these weird claims. Right. They even had a poster on the wall and they said, everything that says, you can say. And I'm like, well, that helps.
That is helpful.
Yeah. And I was like, that's very helpful. I was like, okay, cool. So I'll look at the poster. I'm like, oh, shit, I can't see that. It may help. So, you know, it's good to have sometimes posters like that. So if you're a business owner and you're kind of like, well, how am I going to get them reminders? Put up a poster, make it clever, you know, educational, but at the same time, it's for them too, to where this is going to educate the customer, but it's also for a reference for the budtender if they ever slip. You guys have a lot of information in your head. Don't get me wrong. Things are going to slip. One thing I did find is it's a little safer to use the terpenes, I guess, versus using, you know, the other stuff, because terpenes are widely more studied and they're a little easier to kind of verbiage around versus like THC, CBD, and all that stuff. So that's one thing I found. I was like, okay, that's cool. You know, don't give them definitives. It's not saying like, you know, the limonene's going to cure your, you know, your sickness or whatever. You don't do that. It's not what that means. It means it's a little safer to use that versus like THC is going to do this. It's like, well, linalool is known for, you know, this and this, so it might help you. That's kind of the area what I mean. And you guys already do that too. I've heard it many times, you know, sitting there waiting to like talk to, you know, people in line or whatever. So you guys are, you know, pretty safe to do that, you know, and to be honest, sometimes it does help, sometimes it doesn't. So it's good to do that. But yeah, that's really all I had for that conversation too. I wanted to bring it up because, you know, I do hear these conversations, and it wasn't a big deal when we were all Schedule 1, but now that it's Schedule 3, these conversations are going to have to change drastically. Now, don't feel like you need to do this overnight. Like we said, you know, there's going to be a grace period, there's going to be transitions, but it's good to start it now versus later. So hopefully you guys figure that out. If you're a budtender and, you know, you're close with your management or whatever, let them know that maybe we should start, you know, going this route. If you're the manager yourself for ownership, get to with your team, your management team, and maybe the ownership, and kind of chat this out too. If you're already doing it, keep what you're doing, just, you know, make it better. Or, you know, just add more into it, whatever, you know, you're already on the right track. So, yeah, that's really all I had. I wanted to make sure I added the FTC part in there. I was looking at my notes. I was like, okay, I did mention that earlier. So yeah, you don't want the FCC, FDA, FTC, ABC, AGHK, whatever. You don't want any of those alphabet people coming at and knocking at your door. And this is one of the ways that you keep them away. So yeah, that's all I have for that conversation. Do you have anything before we end the show today?
No, I'm appreciative of the opportunity to be here.
Thank you. I appreciate it. Yeah. And I appreciate you coming on the show. You know, it was a good time, and, you know, more than best of luck to you and in the business and everything. And, you know, keep on kicking ass being a manager.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
Yeah, and being a badass grower.
Much appreciated.
Cool. All right, guys. Well, I'll see you next week with another episode of Ask Chad Grassy Logic. All right, y'all. Cheers.